Hello and welcome back to my channel. I do apologise for not uploading yet again, but like I told you last week, my schedule at the moment is very hectic. Before I get started, if I do sound a little bit weird, it's because I'm slightly ill. Everything is piling on top of me. Like adulthood, I can't hack it. Today, as you can hopefully tell by the title, I'm going to test a foundation for you guys. The Studio Skin Foundation from Smashbox. The Studio Skin from Smashbox. Thank you to one of my subscribers. I didn't even think of this. Instead of buying a whole bottle just to test out for you guys, I got a sample this time. That's just a genius idea because I can test out so many foundations for you guys. So if you would like to know how Studio Skin Foundation from Smashbox looks like on an oily, acneic skin, what coverage it has, how long it wears, and all that jazz, just keep on watching. You don't have to make videos on YouTube to receive free samples. If you want to test a foundation out and you want to test the colour, the coverage, if your skin reacts to it, department stores, the counters, so Smashbox, Dior, Chanel, YSL, a lot of the higher end brands will be able to give you a sample, and the amount you get will depend on the person that's serving you, but usually they will give you at least one application's worth of foundation, and yeah, you can just test it out on your skin yourself. A gentleman served me and I did tell him that I am roughly NW 10, 13 or 15, just to give him the idea of how fair my skin is. However, he got hooked on the NW part, my undertone, so he actually said that's cool undertone, and I was like, yeah, but I'm more neutral. He was like, well, if you're NW then, but anyway, he was lovely, and we tried this one that I have here, which would be equivalent of the NW 13, he said, and then we tried the neutral one, and to be fair, I was surprised to see that this one did match me a little bit better. The number that have been assigned to is number 1, which is described to be as fair, cool, peach undertone. Let's see. If this doesn't match me, I'm not dissing the guy that has served me. It is extremely hard to match the foundation to any skin. As usual, I will start with a sponge first. I will apply one side of my face with a sponge, and then if I feel like I want to try a foundation brush, I will on the other side. Okay, so I have a decent amount of foundation in here. Took a little bit. It's already starting to sink into my sponge. I think it might be because it's a hydrating formula. It smells a bit like Studio Fix from MAC and a little bit like Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundation. They all have that very chemically smell. Will it cover my spots? I'm not gonna lie, it has more coverage than I thought it could possibly have. A foundation has a word hydrating in there. You don't immediately think full coverage or even medium coverage. I always think pretty light, but it's actually not bad. Okay, so after one layer, I think this is a medium coverage. The shade match is not too bad. Just ever so slightly too dark for me. Let's try a brush, and as always I will be using Expert Face Brush from Real Techniques. I don't know why, but kind of light coverage it gave me with the brush, but I don't have as much acne on this side of my face. I'm gonna go back to the sponge see if I can build it, but I'm very happy with the amount the guy gave me because I will be able to try it out probably 3 times, maybe even 4, which is great. Well, as you can see, does build very, very well, but it does look a bit cakey, like above my top lip. It's like slightly sat on my skin, but I'm not gonna lie, I love the finish of it because it's matte. Oh, it feels so, it's not like dried down matte, but it looks matte, and I like that. You know I like that. I'm using Collection Lasting Perfection in number 1. It didn't have a problem with the concealer at all. I've used Conceal and Define Concealer in C15 to kind of cream contour. Like, it hasn't set really matte, but it has set. So when I started contouring my nose, I actually removed some of the foundation. So I wouldn't use cream contour with this foundation, but I'm going to do the rest of my makeup and get on with the day. It is 10 past 11, so I'm just going to start counting it from 11 and then see how long we can wear this foundation, how well it wears. Ignore my very basic makeup and my watery eye, but I've decided to do a check-in with natural lighting. There you go. That's my better cheek, and that's my disgusting cheek. I've got nothing on my lips, sorry guys. In theory, this looks good, in theory. I've only worn it for like half an hour, but I've decided to make a check-in because it just, I don't know, for like a foundation that's like that high end, I'm not sure, how much is it? Let me check. Almost 30 quid. It's 29.50 on the Smashbox website. I can get this with Wet n Wild. This very, very, very reminds me of Wet n Wild. It's like almost identical to Wet n Wild, and it hasn't like filled in any of my pores or anything. It hasn't smoothed out my skin. Like, the finish is very similar, and I can only imagine the wear is going to be similar, so I think the wear is going to be a crucial part. Like, it looks good, like my highlight looks amazing. I am feeling myself, but it's just, for that amount of money, this is nothing special. 3 hours have passed and I kind of want to do a check-in here because that's where I did it last time. You can start to see that in the middle of my forehead I am starting to get a little bit of like a healthy amount of glow. What do you think? It looks fine, but honestly I feel like I'm wearing the Wet n Wild Photo Focus foundation. I don't feel like I'm wearing £30 worth, well, not £30 worth, but £30 Smashbox foundation. It really is comparable to the Wet n Wild one, so it hasn't wowed me yet, and I highly doubt it will wow me more, but let's see, maybe it wears better than the Wet n Wild. Let's see. I'll see you in a couple of hours. I have to go. So it's been 2 more hours, therefore I've had this foundation on for 5. And I'll be honest, I feel like since my last check-in, which was the 3-hour mark, my face hasn't actually changed all that much. Like, the amount of shine that's on my forehead is pretty much the same as it was on the 3-hour mark. Like, maybe just a tad a bit more. The foundation is not rubbing off and it's very comfortable. It doesn't feel slippery. Like, yeah, there is a bit of shine. You can just see there. It's pretty decent. Like, it's a good foundation, but for that price, like I said, it's comparable to Wet n Wild, and I will keep saying it because it's so, like, it reminds me of Wet n Wild so much. So if you like Wet n Wild, you are very likely to like this foundation. However, one of the reasons why I enjoy Wet n Wild is that it's £5. This is almost 30. Like, it's holding up pretty well. I've been sweating, so there's just a tiniest bit of a sweat and patchiness going around my hairline just there. But I'm very, very surprised. But in a good way. I just had a wee, so I had to wait. It is 22:08, which means I've had this foundation on for 8.5 hours, almost 9 hours. Feels? Yeah, 8.5 hours. And if you need a long-lasting foundation, this is pretty a good, like, I'm surprised. Honestly, guys, I am very, very surprised that it has lasted on my skin as long as it has. Yes, I'm oily, but I can blot, and I've actually looked at my Wet n Wild foundation wear test. My foundation started rubbing off throughout the day. This one hasn't. Like I said previously, some of my foundation has disappeared, like around my hairline. Hopefully you can see it. But, you know, yes, my skin has improved. So it is easier to cover my spots with foundations. I still think this foundation has maybe even a little less coverage than Wet n Wild, just ever so slightly. But I feel like this one wears just ever so slightly better, but it is almost £25 more expensive. So let me know, what do you think? Because I really like it. I didn't like it at first. I thought it was way too expensive for what it is. Kind of medium coverage, borderline full coverage, and it had like hydrating on there. So I was like, oh my god, we're gonna be very oily very quickly. And my skin looked very oily / glowy very quickly, but it has stayed that way. I don't feel like I'm an oil slick. To some people that might be a little too much, and that's fine. To me, that's just a healthy amount of glow, maybe just a little bit too much on the forehead, but overall I am very, very impressed. Let me know what you think. Would you rather pay $29.50, I think it is $29.50 for Smashbox, or £5 for Wet n Wild, or is it £6? Something like that. It's definitely less than tenner, not even close to £10, and this one is over 20. So that is a disadvantage. Like when it's comparable to something as cheap as Wet n Wild, I can't hold it any longer. It is 10:30, so I've had this foundation on for 11.5 hours. 11.5 hours, and I'm just ready to take it off. I'm done with the day. I've started editing this video. It's gonna be a long one, I think. Overall, I'm very surprised. It does hold up really well. I think the claim is 16 hours, and to be honest, I believe it. For the first time ever, 16 hours is a very possible outcome, even on an oily skin. I haven't blotted, technically, because I've only like used my hand to blot, as I demonstrated here. Like, it hasn't come off as much as I expected it to. So that's a very good sign. At the very beginning, as I put this foundation on, it really reminded me of Wet n Wild, but it doesn't anymore. Wet n Wild does not hold up as good as long as this. However, it is like £15, not even that, like about £20 less Wet n Wild. Oh my god, like, can you tell my brain is switching off? So if you want to spend money on Smashbox, it's a very good foundation. I didn't like it at first. It is cakey in some places. A thinner layer will resolve that issue, that cakiness issue. I hope you have enjoyed this video. It was nice to make a foundation wear test again. I feel like I haven't done that one in a while. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.